ministry, the wives of senior pastors. And they put on I sponsored a program dealing with child prevention, child abuse prevention and the like. And at that point, Dr. Russell was there and he did a PowerPoint presentation and it just opened up my mind to so many different things concerning this issue that, that I wasn't aware of. And I'm pretty sure that, like I myself was not aware of a lot of these things.
Very good.
I'm sure there's so many other people that are not aware of just the little, I don't know if the word subtle would be the proper word to use, but I'm going to use it. Subtle aspects of child neglect, when people are doing things and not realizing that they're actually neglecting the child in the process. For example, something that's simple to me. I mean, and Dr. Russell can correct me if I'm wrong, but if I'm sending my child out of the house in the mornings without properly grooming that child, the child goes out, teeth not brushed or face not washed or anything like that. To me, that's a subtle form of neglect, and it may even be a greater form of neglect. But to me, it's neglecting because you're neglecting to provide the care for that child. Or if you got a child, a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-year-old child, and you haven't trained that child to dress, and you're just saying, go in there and put your clothes on and stuff like that. To me, that's neglecting the child, because my understanding is we're supposed to train up a child in the way that they should go. And that includes, showing them how to sit at the kitchen table and how to hold their knives, their spoons and forks, and how to eat and eat properly, because they're going out and they're going to be interacting in a social setting. And if we don't train them in the house, then we're neglecting the child, because we're neglecting to train the child. So the child gets out into general public and don't know how to connect and function because they've been neglected in the home in terms of being trained in how to do these things. And now, so they go forth and they don't have the necessary social skill to interact.
And Dr. Russell, I would imagine you would also say that the very word neglect is exactly what you mean, which is to say not to pay any attention to, not to help, or not to inform, not to teach, and et cetera. And so anytime that a parent is not teaching his child, he or she is neglecting that child. Not only a parent, any other individuals who don't deal. Would that be a correct statement in reference to how sociologists and others look at this?
Neglect is anything that prevents a person from developing the skills necessary for life, to deal with life. It can be as subtle as, not telling a child or teaching a child their ABCs. It could be, as subtle as not, as Dr. Walker said, as teaching them how to brush their teeth in the morning, teaching them how to groom their hair, how to prepare to go out and meet society. We often, because we only see abuse and neglect when it's at a very large scale, when, you have the parent who drowns her children, or you have the parent who puts the child in a microwave, and those types of, and we see that as abuse and neglect. But there's so many other forms of abuse and neglect that go unnoticed, to the untrained eye for a kid that comes to school, for example.
As a matter of fact, I think that was the best example that you could think of, Dr. Russell, when we talk about neglect, because every teacher who watches children come into his or her classroom can determine which child is neglected simply by looking at that child. You can tell whether a child is well groomed, the way the child speaks, everything in reference to the child. You can and so in a real sense, it's just the human experiences that are not passed on by the caregiver to the child. And anytime those human experiences are not passed on, then that child is considered to be neglect.
I watched. They had a training on traumatic brain injury, and it was surprising that some forms of neglect and abuse has such an effect on normal brain activity and functioning. A child not, withholding food from a child, how it can actually affect that child later on in life.
Oh, yes.
Withholding love, and just really nurturing, withholding that nurturing mother or father type of connection with that child can actually affect certain brain activity to where the child grows up with these holes, where they, then they start looking for other things to fill those holes.
Well, when you deal with, doctor, your clients, how do you bring them in to deal with them? I mean, do they come to you and say that I've neglected my child, or are they sent to you by somebody? I mean, how do you get in touch with these?
Normally, I know up front that they've been, they're coming to me as dependent neglect, because that's the way that the referrals come into me, and it states that they're dependent neglect. And it kind of gives me, an overall view of what type of neglect the child has been subjected to. And so when I'm working with that child, the first thing I try to do is to gain their trust. Because one of the things that children need to know, especially kids coming from abusive environments, is that they can trust the people that have some control over their lives. Because when you look at a child who's been abused by his mother or his parents, that child has zero trust with any other adult. Because if the person who brought me in the world is not going to take care of me, the stranger certainly ain't going to do it. So then you've got to take time to build the trust. Trust is essential. Dr. Nicholas Hobbs talked about trust being essential in the relationship between a child and a parent, or a child and an adult. And then once you can gain that trust, you find out what their deficits are, whether they need to help it. And then you start working with that child on how to overcome those deficits in their life. But the main thing, as in the presentation I did with Dr. Walker, that you have to do with a child, you got to say it, mean it, and do it. You can't say something and then you don't do it. You got to say it, you got to mean it, you got to do it. Because kids look at follow through. That's how you build trust, whether that's a consequence or reward.
And so you have an opportunity to deal with children within that range under the program that you work with.
Yes, sir.
And that's part of your occupation in a real sense. And of course, we're going to take this commercial break, and we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Thank you, and welcome back to the final segment of the show for today. The topic is aspects of child abuse and neglect, and we're talking to Dr. Russell and Pastor Walker. And so, Pastor Walker, let's see if we can start this third segment by dealing with some aspects from your own personal position in reference to your own personal views, as well as to allow Dr. Russell to bring in sort of an institutionalized point of view in terms of the institutions that he worked with and how they handle these issues of child abuse. Any aspect of that. Okay, let's talk about it.
You know, Dr. Hammond, Dr. Russell, he mentioned about, you know, nourishing the child. And, you know, the Bible talks about fathers, you know, provoke not your child to wrath, but bring him up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. And as a young man, my first child was born when I was age 17. My oldest son, I was age 17 when he was born. Of course, I knew nothing about, you know, child rearing and anything like that. And surely, some of my actions and behavior over the period of years of my life amounted to neglect, because you know, in a lot of aspects, even just the fact that I went to prison was a form of neglect of my children and everything. But I didn't know. I was taught that, you know, the woman, she took care, she brought up the children, she took care of the children, made sure they had their needs. I never knew that the father had a more involved role in that process than what I thought. You know, I'm thinking is, you know, you go out, you make some money, you know, you provide, you pay for stuff, you know, you buy stuff, and of course, unfortunately, we got a court system that's relegating fathers to that situation, to that position as well, because they're saying you pay child support and spend, you know, every other weekend with your child, you know, and that's really not, you know, sufficient really to raise a child. But that's what I grew up with, thinking, you know, that it was a woman's role to do that, and it wasn't my role.
Man is the breadwinner.
Yeah, the breadwinner.
Yeah. So I think in a real sense, Dr. Russell, you would also say that many of us probably grew up in that confine, in that concept, with those concepts, especially if you didn't grow up with a silver spoon in your mouth, and et cetera. If you came from the other side, and which does not mean that you can't be neglected in a palace, but in a real sense, I think that we're more susceptible, in a real sense, poor folks are more susceptible to that than any other group. Would you say that?
I would agree. We parent how we were parented. That's how it's passed on. It's through our point of reference is our own experience as a child, and we parent that same way until we know better. Growing up in a single parent home myself, you know, if I didn't have, I have two sisters in my immediate family, and if their husbands, you know, they took time to actually mentor for me what it was to be a man. Right. And I watched them in their interaction with my sisters, and also my oldest sister, she's dead and gone. Her husband just died last year. They raised me from, you know, for about 12 years of my life. So I had that dual family role, and my sister was at home, was a stay-at-home mom, so to speak, and my brother-in-law went to work every day. He slayed the bear and brought him home for my sister to dress him. And so I learned from him what it was to be a man, but he also had a sense of connection with me, that he spent that time with me, not just paying the bills and putting food on the table and clothes on my back.
He served as a mentor to you in a real sense.
He mentored me, exactly, in a real sense. And a lot of times the kids that come to us, they come to us without that. And so what we try to do tests to determine where they are. We can do, you know, psychological testing, we can do psychoeducational testing, psychosexual testing to determine how deeply wounded they are in terms of their abuse, and so we'll know where to start at with working with this child. But one of the main things they need is for one person to take an interest in them and invest in their lives, because that one person can actually help them turn their corner. Because see, an abused child, in all probability, would become an abuser if you don't treat the abuse. A child who's been exposed to sexual abuse, their point of reference is it's okay to touch, you know, to touch your child. So if you don't treat that, it's only going to be precipitated in their life, you know, as they grow up into adulthood and as they have children. They will get into unhealthy, you know, relationships. They'll get into promiscuous activity. You know, it's a whole lot of things that can happen if you leave it untreated. But if you get them quick enough, early enough, know what's going on, see what the deficits are, and then build a program around those deficits, you can help stem the tide of abuse.
And one of the most important components, I would imagine, Pastor, is LOVE. Which is to say that as long as a child understands that he or she is LOVE, respect, understanding, goodwill, and et cetera, then that can overcome all kinds of child abuse and neglect and et cetera. But that child has to understand that. Is that what we're saying here?
Unconditionally. You know, a lot of times abused children think they've got to do something to earn that love because they come from that environment. But you got to show them that you love them unconditionally. It doesn't come with a price tag. You don't have to be a rocket scientist in school for me to love you or to brag about, you know, brag about what you do. I'm going to love you regardless. You know, and so that child learns to be accepted for who they are, and they stop trying to fit into some other role to satisfy. Because a lot of times an abused child will try to fit a role because they think if I fit that role, I can avoid the abuse.
Wow. And of course, what I think we've got about, 3 more minutes before the end of this show today. And what would you like to leave in a real sense, Dr. Russell, with our audience this morning on how they might be able to better communicate and better work with their children? But not only with their children, but how they might also work with other children as well.
I think one of the things I'd like to leave with everybody is we are prone by nature to react to negative situations. The child acts out, then we react to that negative acting out. What I would like to recommend is that as adults, that we try to catch children doing good. You know, be observant enough to see them when they're doing something right and compliment them for what they've done right. You would be surprised how much that does to their self-esteem. Especially if they're coming from environments where they're told they're wrong, everything they do is wrong, you know. And it doesn't have to be the parent that catches that child doing good. It could be a teacher. It could be, you know, a social worker. It could be just the pastor of the church. It could be a deacon in the church, you know, because that whole village mentality, it really needs to be implemented in our communities. We need to, as a community, pull together to stem the tide of abuse among our children.
And trying to do whatever we can in order to increase their self-esteem, how they feel about themselves.
How they feel about
because
themselves.
How they feel about themselves is how they will act toward others, you see. And a bully will generally try to bully other folks, you see, because he understands that he himself is a bully and etc. And so, Pastor, we've got about a minute and 21 seconds during this last segment here. Let's see if have you got any final statements. Then perhaps we'll allow Dr. Russell to sort of close us out this morning.
Yeah, I'm just thankful that Dr. Russell is coming on here today and saying some of the things that he's saying, because he makes some valid points, especially when he talks about, you know, speaking to or actually looking for opportunities to catch the child doing something right and good, and then compliment him, because I know you can only raise somebody's self-esteem by doing something like that, and further enhance who they are and who you grooming them to be. And I just thank God for knowing Pastor Russell. Like I said, I don't have a degree, but I know some sharp, smart people.
And we appreciate you bringing us this smart man by this morning to give us some information in reference to various aspects of child abuse and neglect. I don't think that any of us have said anything that people are not familiar with, but I think that we had an opportunity to sort of bring it all together for them this morning. And I want to thank the two of you for doing that. And I want to encourage our audience to tune in again next week to another informative edition of Comments. Thank you and good morning.
I'm letting her get a couple of pictures while we're up here, y'all.
And I can take some like during break. I can't just like you guys get recording. And so I can take some.
Okay.
Yeah, let me see. Is that on? Can you tell?
No, let her look. I don't have my glasses. See if it's on for him.
Tell whether that's on. Okay.
Okay.
Trying to get everybody placed here. Okay, now let me get up here.
Okay. Smile, you guys. We're getting a couple of shots first. That's my camera. I'm letting her get us some shots of flowers.
Okay.
Told you she's a natural. So there's nothing, no topic. He done told you about what, yeah. It's just the broken generation.
Now, the title
About why we broken.
is The Broken Generation. That's what I'm going to introduce this as. And we're talking to Mr. Greenlee, Mr. Young, and Mr. Flowers.
Yes.
Is that it?
Yes.
Okay, very good. And so what we want to do is to start off, and this is a 30-minute show.
Okay.
First part is 6 minutes. That's the first segment. And the second, and we'll have that first segment, 6 minutes, background, education, experience, which is to say that we'll get that kind of general information from the three of you. You know, you'll take about 2 minutes to give who you are, 2 minutes as to who you are,
Okay.
and 2 minutes as to who you are. And that should be that first segment, you see. And then we'll have a commercial break. Then we'll have a commercial break for 2 minutes. And then we'll come back with a second segment of 8 minutes, you see. And this is where we'll get into the topic, the broken generation. Since this is Ms. Greenlee's title, we're going to let her start off by explaining what she meant, what she means by the broken generation. And then that will be that second segment. We'll go from 1, 2, 3, and that kind of.
Okay.
And then we'll have that 8 minutes, and then we'll come back with 10 minutes, and then we'll start picking up on that. But sort of, this is the fourth show for me. I've been doing this
All right.
since, what we want to try to do is to make sure that we feed off one another, which is to say that if she has some information, et cetera, dealing with the broken generation, we're going to start with you, with the broken generation, and I want you to explain to me why you brought these folks here with us and make some statements in reference to that. That'll give
30 minutes.
That'll give you an opportunity, me an opportunity to start with you, and you can talk, and then but you'll be talking about them, and then after you get through explaining them, then I'll go to one of them, and that'll, but from that we'll alternate between them, so you shouldn't have any problems. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay. Whenever you're ready.
All right. Can we have you say your name and count to 10? Just look towards Dr. Haney while you do it.
Okay. Willie Young.
You got to speak up, Mr. Young.
Willie Young.
Yeah, good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh, you want me to count out loud?
Yeah.
I was counting myself. Okay.
Yeah, no,
All
just
right.
talk so that.
Yeah.
So we get a level.
Okay.
Yeah. So we can all
Yes.
see.
Willie Young.
Speak
1,
up.
2,
Yeah.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
Okay.
8, 9, 10.
Okay, Mr.
Vic Flowers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Very good.
Clemmy Greenlee, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, is that right? Are we ready? Okay.
Okay, so when we start, we're looking at you.
Yeah, I'm just looking at me. And the title, and I want you to explain the title. When we start off, I'll introduce the title, and you want to call this "Broken Generation." That might be a title that's not familiar to many people about what we mean when we talk about broken generation, and so we want you to explain what we mean by broken generation and the individuals that you have with you this morning. Okay. All right. God is good. Yes, He is. Thank God. And we're so appreciative of all of you for coming by and helping move this thing forward.
Well, you know, I appreciate you, Dr.
You
You
got-
always help me stay out here.
Yeah, you bring such information. Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is broken generation. And we have with us to talk about the broken generation, Ms. Greenlee, Mr. Young, and Mr. Flowers. Three individuals who have quite a bit of information dealing with this new idea of a broken generation. And let me, Ms. Greenlee, not only welcome you with Mr. Young and Mr. Flowers, but let's have you to give us some information for the sake of the audience, some information in reference to your background, your education, and some of your experiences. And in the meantime, introduce these two individuals to me and to tell me why they are with you today.
Oh, yes. Good morning, Dr. Haney. Again, thank you for having me on your show. Again, my name is Clemmy Greenlee. I'm the founder of Nashville Peacemakers Stop the Violence Campaign, and I'm also a community advocate. I want to talk about broken generation because it's in my mind is that we don't talk enough about our young men, our young black men that's being not only lost out here, but why they are broken. And I brought Mr. Young here with me and Mr. Flowers because they are young black men, and they do a lot in the community to impact society themselves. And I would like for them to just gear in on why they think that this generation is broken and not lost.
Very good. Now, let's have you, Mr. Young, give us a little information in reference to your background, and which will be followed by Mr. Flowers.
My name is Willie Young. Everybody knows me as Chill Will, party promoter, concert promoter. And I've been working with kids since I've been in Nashville. I'm originally from Memphis. I went to Tennessee State, played baseball, and pledged Alpha Phi Fraternity Incorporated. And, you know, all my life here in Nashville, I've always had a passion to help and work with people. And that's, you know, that's what I've been doing, you know, since I've been in Nashville. And that's something I definitely love dearly.
Very good. Mr. Flowers.
Yes, my name is Vic Flowers. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. And basically, what I do in the community, I do different outreaches. I do outreach through music as well, and try to connect with other organizations to do outreach as well. From one of the organizations like Youth for Christ and the Hour of a Future program and things like that.
And so both of you are deeply involved, as is Ms. Greenlee, in reference to, let's start us off, Ms. Greenlee, dealing with broken generations. We've got about 2 minutes before we end this first segment. Let's talk about this broken generation.
Well, the broken generation with me is a lack of communication with our young people. It's a lack of education, and it's also a lack of finance. But more than anything, it's a lack of binding our communities together. We so quick to just pour in the negative of why our young generation is lost or broken, but we don't have too many structures to be coming in to help us, you know, put things together to get everything back on track. So this is why I want to just come and just talk about mostly the lost generation and the broken generation.
What do you see, Mr. Young, as some of the real problems with our young men today?
Well, Clemmy, she expounded on two, income and education, but to me, you also need that family structure. You know, a lot of our kids are not growing up with two-parent families. They growing up with just a mom being the mom and the dad, and that's like a strain on the whole entire family.
And so in a real sense, you see that as one of the real reasons that we have. What about you, Mr. Flowers, in terms of looking at some of the issues, some of the problems that our young African-American men have this day?
The major problem that I see in our generation today is we're missing the father. We're missing the man in the home. If we can reconnect that, or we can get men to step up and be like big brothers and big sisters. I heard of their program, and that's some things that they do, and such as, like I told you yourself, about like the Hour of the Future program. That's one of those mentoring programs over the years that helped me, and they got programs that's developing now today that's trying to reach out and really grab these young men by the hand and disciple them.
And so you see this as one of the issues.
Yes, that's one of the major
issues.
That's a major issue in our community today.
And Ms. Greenlee, oftentimes we talk about the absence of young men in terms of fathers, in terms of a father figure. And would you consider that to be part of the broken generation, the absence of fathers?
Well, of course, that's number one big problem. But the main problem with me is, like I said, lack of funds. Because a lot of fathers are already dead. A lot of fathers are already incarcerated. But you got other fathers out here that are willing to pick up and pitch in, but they don't have the finance or the means to do so. So I'm asking is why we can't be financed ourselves so we can do our own mentoring out of our own houses and out of our own communities.
Very good. And of course, what we'll do, we'll take our first commercial break, and then we'll come back for the second segment, and we'll be back with you following this very, very short commercial break. Thank you and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. We're talking to Ms. Greenlee, Mr. Young, and Mr. Flowers, and we're dealing with the issue of the broken generation. Now, Ms. Greenlee has given us excellent information in reference to what she believes constitutes the broken generation, primarily young African-American males who really don't have much of an opportunity in a real sense, dealing with education and other aspects in order to live the good life that is promised by all living in America in a real sense. And so I think that from that perspective, let's speak to that, Ms. Greenlee.
Well, you know, Dr. Haney, for a long time I've been talking about how we have to help our black boys get back into society. And I'm not just talking about a handout. I know people always holler, well, they got to want it. And I've been around a lot of them that want it, and we've been around a lot that don't. So you don't focus on that. You focus on those who want it. My hardest part I have with the young black men is when I done seen them go through school and I done went to their graduation and they still call me on the phone filling out an application at McDonald's or Crystal somewhere and asking me to help them spell this word or figure out this sentence. So I want to bring it back to we are being, number one, rushed through the school system. Number two, we're not being taught and educated like we're supposed to be because the lack of patience that a lot of people have for us. So I want to come back to the grassroots community, the grassroots homes, and really just gravitate and teach our youth. We could talk about everything from school, from the Bible to all the above, but if you just really not gravitating and reaching them, then this point is just ruthless. So I think, you know, we start accumulating our own monies and we start accumulating what we believe belong to us. And then we reach out there and get our us's, then we'll see a totally different thing. I've been here for almost 15 years, and I have not one time been granted a federal grant. Now, do I want it? No, I do not, because it's going to tell me what I need and need not to do. But it's also some local community grants out here and some elected officials and some other powered people that know what I do should already want to pour funds into me for me to continue my work. This is why these two young men are very valuable to me to talk about more on their level or what do they see and what helped them.
If you look at that from that perspective, Mr. Young, what are some of the really must needs that you believe people in your generation have? I mean, what do you have to have? You understand that there's a high incarceration rate, there's unemployment, and there are many other things. But from your perspective, what do we need? What do they need?
First, education.
First, second, first, good.
And then wealth. Because I can reflect back to the last 15 years that I've established organizations and groups with young kids, and I'll never forget the money that we spent, you know, to maintain, to, you know, take the kids out, to, you know, pick them up, to feed them. You know, it costs a lot of money, and then you got to pay your staff. So it definitely has to do with, you know, the money part as far as keeping these organizations, you know, together. You know, I go back and look, and you know. 1999, we had all kind of different organizations. Now you look, there's only like maybe 2 or 3 organizations when it comes to dealing with our young black boys.
What about you, Mr. Flowers, from that perspective?
Our thing is I go right back to discipline. I said it got to start with ourselves. Of course, we're gonna need funding because funding gonna help you do some things and get out there. I will use some of the examples like the Our Future program I was speaking of that helped bring me up throughout the years. They took us out of town on vacations. They taught us about black history. They taught us about being men and women to prevent teenage pregnancies and things like that. But it took finances. Right now, the organization is not operating. That's because of one of the things is finances. So if we can get someone to start finding out about these programs and financing these programs, and then we can keep these programs to come for the next generation to come.
In a real sense, you think that the local governments and the federal government and individuals ought to be willing to provide the resources. That is, the clients are there. The people who are willing to lead the clients are there, but there's simply not enough financial resources to help you do what you think that you ought to do. Is that what we're saying here, Ms. Greenlee?
That's exactly what we're saying. I say it all the time, Dr. Haney, look around us. You know, they're building a whole city here, and I don't blame the people about whoever they is that's building the whole city, but we're not included. You know, me and my brother, we talk all the time, and I listen to the things he be saying, and he be so angry. He said, look at the whole city that's being built around us. We don't have any of the construction jobs. We don't have any tie-ins into what's coming up around us. And then he also made me realize, if I go up and down Buchanan, he'll say it all the time, the only thing we have here is a liquor store, a funeral home, and Buds. But all around us is all kind of other avenues, but it don't belong to us. So they want to know like why we not doing it and why we not building anything. Well, number one, we can't get in. Number two, if we had the finances, and I'm gonna keep saying it. I mean, you can bring me the Bible. You could bring me the man at the front door, but once that door closed at 4 o'clock, there's nothing else going on for these young men, or some of these young ladies too, but we talking about the young men now, to do. If we had our own finance, our own monies, this man's organization not only can be rebirthed, it can stay open as long as it wants to. My household that I opens up every single day and night for anybody can stay up and continue to function and run into the wee hours of the day. But it'll give us also the opportunity to be teaching them and showing them the way to life and the way to get back out here in society. So I'm going to keep on saying, if you don't think it's about money when it comes to us in this poor, low income neighborhood and communities, then I think we all need to come back to the table.
And a real sense, what we're saying, Mr. Young, is that the absence of any kind of financial resources to help support the things that the two of you are doing also helps create a large number of other social problems. When we talk about incarceration, we talk about violence, gangs, drugs, and etc. All is tied into the fact that there are no structures within our community to help, excuse me, alleviate some of these problems. Is that what we're saying?
I definitely agree with that. And another thing that's so valuable, to add on to your point is that, these organizations, like the Eye of the Future, I remember that program, and Calvin Peterson, he ran that program for years and years and years. And I just remember one day he was saying, well, I got to let the program go. And I never understood why he said that, but, now seeing, what I see now is based on finances, based on the money.
No kind of support.
But our part, right.
Not just from the local government, but also from your neighborhood.
Neighbors,
Neighborhood got to pitch in, the leaders, everybody.
There's such a, and of course what we're going to do, we're going to take our second commercial break, and then we're going to come back during this last segment and allow you to further elaborate upon what the three of you consider to be some of the issues. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Thank you and welcome back to the final segment of the show for today. We're talking to Ms. Greenlee, Mr. Young, and Mr. Flowers, and the topic is broken generation. What we're trying to do with this program this morning, Ms. Greenlee, is to make people aware of the lack of any kind of resources that can help many of our young people stay out of trouble in a real sense. And I think the term you use is broken generation, and I think that a large number of our young people fall within that category, not because of their own inability to do anything, but simply because of the inability of the government, local communities, private organizations to help provide the resources that are necessary to keep them out of jail, to keep them out of killings and et cetera. Speak to it from that perspective, Ms. Greenlee.
Well, Dr. Haney, if you really look at it, people do their research. Everything that we had, like Mr. Young was saying from the early 90s, it's either been cut out, it's been shut down, or it's been taken away. The budgets have been cut. It always been cut in our low-income communities. We had it where we was filtering out. So now you want to talk about the high rate of incarceration, the drug sales, the gangbangers. Okay, everybody know my son was murdered by a gang member, but it was not because he was struggling, he couldn't find a job and stuff like that. It was because wouldn't nobody let him in. So if you got people, getting busted selling drugs and stuff like that, you got to think, they trying to work. Everybody don't have a felon. Everybody not going to be able to go to college. Everybody's not going to be able to qualify for Belmont, Vanderbilt, Oasis, Mount O'Brien. Some people, you put an application in some stuff, you either make $1 too much or $1 too less. So where we come in at between. So until we start realizing that we have to put our own monies in together, leaders have to put in monies in a pot for our own selves in order for us to continue to be out here and to work and make our lives, our youth, and our community more safer and watch it grow instead of sitting back watching things grow around us and we not being involved. I don't understand how we can sit back and just watch that.
Speak to that, Mr. Young.
Well, my thing on it is that our young youth, they don't have income. They don't. I remember when I grew up, it was a program called CETA. Every summer, I had a summer job making money, and that kept me out of trouble. Because you work, and then once you get your money, you go and take care, do whatever you're gonna do, buy your candy, buy your school clothes, whatever you got to do. But now it's like we're not blessed with that silver spoon in our mouth. Non-blacks, they got 80% chance of being successful. Non-black kids, 87%. So that means you can make 2 or 3 mistakes and still come back and you be successful. But our young boys, our kids, that's not the case.
Mr. Flowers.
Well, a lot of things, quite a few things I like to address. As I was coming up in the Preston Taylor projects, Preston Taylor homes, our community has changed tremendously. Of course, they'll knock the brick projects down and they don't rebuild some nicer homes and things like that. But they took our community center away from us. So now all the kids, a lot of kids now, they're turning to drugs. And so, that's one thing that I say is like, I see all these signs of these governments when it's time for elections, they want to show up, walk through your neighborhoods and things like that. But why can't we visit our neighborhoods throughout the years? Why can't we do that quarterly to see what we need in our community? That center was a big part of our community because at the community center, we had haunted houses, we had skating parties, we had dances, we had programs, African drum programs. A lot of programs came through there with Mr. Perry when he was down there working there. And now we don't have that. So a lot of kids are turning to drugs. A lot of kids are turning to gang violence. And so we need things local in the community. Look at our stores. We have malt liquor stores all in our community. We don't have the fruits and vegetables that's close. Everybody don't have a vehicle. So we need to reach out to our community and come together and bring these resources together. Just as Mr. Young, I worked with him when I was younger, passing out flyers and things like that, selling candy bars. Why? He helped me put money in my pockets to buy school clothes because my mom had 5 kids and she wasn't able to do it by herself. So we need to fund these programs and find out about these programs and get the resources there so we can turn our communities around. And like Miss Greenlee said, when we get these funds, we're not alert about what's going on in our community. When they set them signs out there and they talking about these meetings, well, I grew up, we don't know nothing about that. They're not pulling us together, knocking on our doors to say, hey, we need you to come to this meeting because we're trying to do these zone hearings. 34 years old, and I'm just finding out about these
See,
things.
thank
Why? Because
you.
I'm blind to that. And so it's basically like we've been blindsided by a lot of things. And so we need to come together and work as a unit. And so I see exactly
So
where she's
excited.
coming from, and I'm there to support and try to bring things together to better our community.
Oh, God.
Go,
I would
go.
like to say something. I want to add to that. You know, the thing about it is, you know, everybody's wise. You know, the government's wise, the leaders are wise. So if it's a problem in the black neighborhood, then they should be the first to know. So if it's an epidemic, then we got to go ahead and take care of that. You see what I'm saying? So why spend $250-something million on some development or renovation when we need 50 or 60 million in the black neighborhood, you know, to save our young boys? You see, especially when it's an epidemic. It's an epidemic.
And so the three of you would agree that unemployment, and I think that that's one of the prime things that we're talking about in a real sense, that these young people really don't have any opportunities toward employment and et cetera. And so, and I would suspect that it's probably much worse than we think it is.
Oh, yes.
Because all you have to do is look around, and when you turn on the news at night and you see some of the problems, young people trying to just make money anyway, snatching money off people who riding by with bicycles and whatever, anything that they might be able to use in order to get a little money. And I think that's the real problem. And I think that all of you have identified that as a real issue here. Now, another thing, what about methods that we, as young people, have thought of in terms of trying to stop voting, for example, participation in the political process? We've got an election that's coming up, but now if we don't participate, then
No
nothing-
change won't be made.
nothing
And
will-
that's another thing. Like you said, if you have these programs to where it needs to be drawn out when these elections coming, we need to have these programs to go out and educate people on voting and the importance of voting, because like I said, we weren't taught, but I am a registered voter and I do vote, and I will be voting this coming August. But it's like getting to know who we're voting for, because a lot of people just running with the crowd. And so that's the thing. We need to be educated about that. I mean, what do these people do and what they're not going to do, or what improvements need to be made, so we can present these things to these candidates and see if they grab interest. But myself, right now, to be part of the community, I coach for the Jefferson Street Bills, 7 and 8 year olds, and that's helping giving back to the community, because I had coaches that gave back to me. And so that's what we're trying to do now, is just find different avenues to grab these kids by the hand and give them something to do other than being on these corners and selling drugs and joining gangs.
Yeah.
Mr. Young?
Yeah, I would also want to add to that is, you know, I'm working on a campaign, and this is like my first time working. And if I could do it all over again, I would have became a politician, because a politician, they controls everything. You know, they know everything that's going on in the city. They know everything that needs to be done for these neighborhoods and these communities. So I would have became a politician, because you know the things that I see, like he said, you know, everybody's coming out now. They want you to vote for them, but once they get that office, are you going to see them again? So this time we want to make sure whoever become our leader, our local leader in Nashville, we're going to hold you accountable.
You know, it appears to me that one of the things that we need to do is to make sure, and I think Mr. Flowers has hit up on it, to make sure that people are registered to vote. You see, because I understand that only 6% of 6 out of 100 people vote in the Nashville elections and et cetera. When you got a voter turnout like that, nobody's concerned, because the politicians have money. And the government has money, and the only thing that shakes the money tree is a vote. You see, and people who don't participate in it don't get served in a real sense. It's a terrible thing to say, but I think that that's true. And I think that what we're doing, we're coming to the last few seconds of this show today. And I want to thank the three of you for coming by and giving us that excellent information in reference to what Ms. Greenlee has described. And I think she's the first person that has described this situation as a broken generation. She talked about broken women and et cetera. And so we want to thank the three of you, and we want to encourage our audience to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you and good morning.
got that phone silenced.
Tell your daughters that we had an opportunity to see them this past Saturday. Right? This is my granddaughter.
Oh, I'm very familiar with Alana. My daughters are big fans of her because we watched the show when she's been guest, and they're really impressed with just her just wealth of knowledge. So I took a picture with her to show them. They're really excited.
Okay.
But
Cole,
she does a great job.
I'm doing
when
pretty
she's
good
on.
today. Yes, thank you.
So this is a 30-minute show. And y'all try not to move those chairs.
Okay.
Those
Okay.
chairs. I think yours might have wheels on it.
Okay.
Right?
Is that the reason I'm rolling over there?
Yeah.
Okay.
What they're going to have to do is push you back up to get you spot.
Okay.
You just get back up in there.
Okay.
He'll
All right.
pick you up. And Mr. Williams, yeah. Yeah, he'll get. Okay.
Take care.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to call this Mentoring African American Youth.
Okay.
Okay, and the show will be divided into 3 parts. And basically, what we're trying to do with this group is the same thing that you saw us do with the is to get y'all started to talking about what we consider to be important issues. But the most important issue, Mr. Thrill Kill, is to talk about what we consider to be your background education experiences. We've got 6 minutes to do this, and it gives each of you about a minute and a half to make some statements. I was born here, and et cetera, and et cetera, and et cetera. You know, a minute and a half. That clock is not only for me. You can see that clock too. And gives you, and so what we'll do, we'll start with you, get some information from you, and then Mr. Cole, and then Mr. Williams, all background information and et cetera. And then we'll have a 6-minute break. And then we'll come, a 2-minute break, and we'll come back for 8 minutes, an 8-minute segment. And then we'll probably start with you during that second segment, Mr. Williams, to talk about African American. That's the name of the show, is Mentoring African American Youth. Unique Gents. Yes, and so what we're doing, we're highlighting unique gents. And so, Thrill Kill, when you talk about, you start talking about the topic, you can also mention the fact of, the 3 of you have that shirt, those logos on there, and that gives us some idea, and that you're involved in this whole process, and say something about some of your activities quite recently, whatever you wish to talk about that might further enhance your organization, this organization dealing with youth and et cetera, anything that's positive or anything that you want to say in reference to what you consider to be the real problem as to why our young people are, however you want to do it. I mean, that's what y'all do. You see, that's what I don't have to tell y'all what y'all do. Just talk about what you do. And what we do here is just put it in a framework. And y'all just don't try not to move those chairs, because those chairs operate the camera. You see, and they get and ain't nobody more important in this thing than me. See, I'm the center of attention. See, I tie everything together. It also means can't nobody mess this up but me. You see, and this is the 5th one that we've had today, and so, we're going to get out of here, and after this 5th one, me and my granddaughter can head on off to home. She did our first show, and her first show was The Rise and Fall of Adolf Hitler. Now you take that, ain't that an intimidating kind of topic for a 12-year-old child to deal with, the rise and fall of Adolf?
Well, I've seen the program where she talks about the Underground Railroad and just all kind of topics. So Alana is really impressive.
She's been with me since she was 8 years old.
Really impressive.
Okay, are we about ready?
Can we get a mic check from you? Look towards Dr. Haney, say your name, count to 10.
My name is Ricky Cole.
Count to 10.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Michael D. Williams, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
All good, thank you.
Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is mentoring African American youth, unique gents. And we're fortunate to have with us members from the organization Unique Gents who will talk about mentoring African American youth. We have with us Mr. James Thrillkill, who is a member of the Unique Gents, as well